I'm James Barfield, and this is your Urban Connection. Now, remember, folks, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. And there's a lot of things in the news today. The Tennessee State Legislature basically expelled 2 young Black members of the legislative body today, not because they had done anything of a criminal nature, but simply because of the fact that they were protesting gun violence, not only in the state of Tennessee, but across all America, and especially gun violence that takes the lives of young, innocent school kids, as young as 6, and in the case of Nashville, Tennessee, 9-year-old school kids. That's one thing. Also in the news today, the former president of the United States became the first president or ex-president ever to be indicted on criminal charges in the United States. That's number 2. And number 3, a report was just released today by ProPublica of a member of the United States Supreme Court taking expensive vacations paid for by a private real estate developer. And that's the story we're going to talk about tonight. Okay? Now, the member of the Supreme Court that I'm referring to is none other than the longest serving member of the current Supreme Court, Justice Clarence Thomas. You heard it right. Justice Clarence Thomas, for the last 20 years or better, as reported by ProPublica, has been taking and accepting cruises to far-flung locales on a Dallas, Texas real estate billionaire by the name of Harlan Crow. He's been gifted with these vacations using Crow's yacht. Okay? He's been gifted for over 20 years to fly at will on Harlan Crow's private jet. And he's been gifted for over 20 years to keep company with the billionaire Crow's powerful friends at Crow's private resort. And guess what? When you are appointed to the US Supreme Court, that appointment comes with a clause. The clause is that you must report all gifts that are received by private individuals, private corporations, and the such. You must report that. But guess what? Justice Clarence Thomas has not reported one single dime's worth of gifting that has been afforded him by this developer from Dallas, Texas, by the name of Harlan Crow. Yeah, mind you, at least one of, if not more, of these vacations, if had been paid for by Justice Clarence Thomas, would have run up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of these trips included a 9-day yacht vacation, okay, to a destination And the trip is alleged to have cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000. Okay? But Clarence Thomas has never admitted any of this. He's never reported any of this. And this refusal to report is a violation of the clause that comes with being appointed a Supreme Court justice. It's an ethics violation. Just as we heard from the arraignment of the former president when he was indicted on 34 counts just a few days ago, the same applies to Clarence Thomas. No man nor woman is above the law. Clarence Thomas has violated the ethics laws of the Supreme Court. Why is this being overlooked? Why is the loudest mouth in the Congress, US Congress, Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio, who's been in Congress since 2007? That's 17 years. And he has never, and he's the only one that I know of personally, that has been in Congress for 17 years and has never, ever passed a single bill that would benefit his constituents in the state of Ohio. But he can issue subpoenas to district attorneys from the state of New York. The same subpoenas that he and his colleagues in the US House of Representatives refused to acknowledge when they were subpoenaed to appear before the January 6th committee. So why is it that all of a sudden the loudest mouth in the US Congress, Jim Jordan, has gone silent? Why is he not issuing a call for Clarence Thomas to come and testify before the US Congress about the omittance of the reporting of these gifts that he received at the expense of a private billionaire real estate developer in Dallas, Texas? What's up with that, Jim? Now, let me tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. We've heard this before, but now the proof is coming out. The evidence is coming out. The question has been asked, is the United States Supreme Court for sale? And they would tell you to a T, absolutely not. We're independent. We're not influenced by anybody. We're not influenced by anything. We go straight by the book. You're a liar. You're all liars, especially the GOP members. You're in the pockets of various institutions and various rich white businessmen who are in the 1%ers group. And this is just one case. Now, let me explain something to you. If this was all above board, and if there was nothing criminal or unethical about these trips, why wouldn't Clarence Thomas report them? You see, let me say something to you. There's no doubt left in my mind that if Clarence Thomas is accepting these kinds of gifts, so are other members of the United States Supreme Court. If you want us to believe that you're not influenced by these luxurious gifts, private vacations, flying on private jets, having a yacht at your disposal, staying at a billionaire's private resort, how many of us are ever afforded those opportunities. Those opportunities are only afforded to somebody who's looking for something in return. Okay? And normally, that something they're looking for is access to the individual that they're affording these gifts to. Influence, in case something occurs or there's a case in front of you at the Supreme Court and they need your influence to sway the verdict into their favor. Now, they would all deny this. They would deny it to a hilt. They would deny it to a T. Ladies and gentlemen, something's awfully funny going on here. And it appears, according to the report by ProPublica, it has been funny goings on for over 20 years with no reporting from Clarence Thomas. Now, this is on top of all of the things that the wife of Clarence Thomas has done that violate the ethics policy. Even though she is not a member of the Supreme Court, her husband is. She can use her influence. She can be influenced by gifts, okay? Okay? She can be influenced by gifts of money. She's using a lot of influence, and apparently, and it appears that influence is working in Clarence Thomas's favor. Now, I just want to know, why is it that the members of the Supreme Court cannot be counted on to be fair and balanced? I think the evidence is coming out, and the evidence is clear that there's something going on between certain members of the United States Supreme Court and members of the 1% group, the millionaires and the billionaires, the businessmen that are seeking favors, or seeking access, seeking to influence certain members of our United States Supreme Court. I don't know how you could draw any other conclusion. Clarence Thomas, for years, has been voting against the best interest of his constituents in favor of certain members, certain industries that are owned by members of the 1% group, better known as the rich and famous. And he never gives an explanation for why he voted the way he does. But we look at the evidence that has been coming forward. And this latest report by ProPublica is the smoking gun that we've all been waiting for. And it's here. There's proof. There's no denying, not by Mr. Harlan Crow, nor by Justice Clarence Thomas, even though Mr. Crow has been reported that he has said that he has never, ever asked for a favor of Mr. Clarence Thomas. Yeah, right. Okay. Now, in addition to these gifts, it is reported that Mr. Crow donated over $100,000 to Clarence Thomas's alma mater, Yale. Ladies and gentlemen, there's an old saying: if it looks like a duck, acts like a duck, and walks like a duck, it's a duck. And in this case, you don't have to think twice about whether this is looking like a duck, acting like a duck, and talking like a duck. So this is the first duck that has come out of the woodwork. This is the first smoking gun that we have that clearly puts Clarence Thomas in the pockets of a rich billionaire. There's no two ways about it. But you won't hear any members of the GOP House of Representatives commenting on this story. Okay? You won't hear loudmouth Jim Jordan. You won't hear crybaby begging for money. Okay? You won't hear the Speaker of the House commenting on this. See? So it is up to the American public to demand an investigation to see why Justice Clarence Thomas should not be impeached. Now, Justice Thomas, as I said, is the longest serving US Supreme Court member. He has gotten completely comfortable, and he is thinking that he can do whatever the hell he wants to do and doesn't have to answer to anybody. When reached out and contacted by members of the investigative reporting group from ProPublica, Mr. Clarence Thomas had no response. Neither did any of the other justices. Neither did any of the GOP congressmen, nor senators. Senator Lindsey Graham, where's your voice? Where's your crybaby voice? You cry for justice against Attorney General or District Attorney Alvin Bragg for his arraignment of your buddy, your criminal buddy, ex-president. You cry for the American public to dig into their pockets and pull out some of their hard-earned money to hand it over to a billionaire with a criminal behavior. A billionaire. According to him, a multi-billionaire. And you're telling me and you're telling us that this guy needs help paying his legal fees, his legal bills? Or is this just another greedy money grift by the former president? Now, you know, I think back to a couple of years ago when the, former president called people that voted for him and continue to support him suckers. That's right. That's what he called you all. And you all have just become bigger suckers as time has went on. And you continue to send your hard-earned money to help a billionaire pay his legal fees. What kind of sense does this make? You know? All right, so folks, I've told you the story. The word is out. The smoking gun has been revealed. Clarence Thomas, for lack of a better term, has been on the take for the last 20 years and in the pockets of rich multimillionaires and billionaires who have provided him with plenty of luxurious vacations that you and I will never, ever see, nor could we afford. And neither could Clarence Thomas if he was not the US Supreme Court justice. And if these vacations were not gifted to him by one of those rich billionaires, okay? Now, like I said, folks, if Clarence Thomas is guilty of this, I can guarantee you he's not the only one on the Supreme Court who has been accepting some of these same types of gifts and have not been reporting. But now it looks like the chickens might be coming home to roost. Now to another story that's in the news today. In Tennessee, 3 people who protested gun violence and the refusal of the Tennessee state legislature to address the issue of gun violence in a state that has seen in the last 30 days a mass shooting that took the lives of 3 9-year-old students at a church school, along with the lives of 3 adults at that same church school. Well, 3 members of the legislature, all Democrats, has had enough, has seen enough, had heard enough of the thoughts and prayers go out to the victims' families. And they decided that is not enough. We demand more from the legislature in the state of Tennessee to combat and end the school violence that is constantly taking away the lives of innocent school kids as young as the age of 6. Now, how long will it be before the US Congress, the US Senate realizes that before most of these school shootings had happened in public school buildings, and you were not concerned because your children went to private schools? Well, the shooting that took the lives of 3 9-year-olds in Tennessee was not a public school building. It was not a public school. It was a private church school where a gunman went in with 2 assault rifles and a handgun and started shooting. As a matter of fact, he started shooting before he ever gained access to the building. It was his shooting outside that was enabled him to gain access to the school building and the school students. And then he began firing. So now members of Congress, members of the Senate, it's getting closer and closer to your children. It's happening in private schools. It's not all public schools. I want to see how attached you are to the NRA or the gun lobby when these shooting victims start to become your family members, your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews. Let's see how attached you are at that time to the NRA. Now, I know you're under the control of the NRA because it's been reported that the NRA lobbyists are sending you emails and letters that say, we're watching you. We're watching over you. And your loyalty has been to the NRA, the gun lobby, at the expense of our young school children. But it's getting closer and closer to your doorstep, Mr. Congressman, Mr. Senator, Mrs. Congressman, Mrs. Senator. Let's see what you will do. And will you continue your allegiance and your loyalty to the NRA when these victims come from your family, your wife's family, your husband's family, your brother's family, your sister's family? Let's see if that loyalty will remain with the NRA. Okay, folks, that's it for this show. And I want you to, if you enjoyed this show, I would like for you to hit the subscribe button, become a constant member who is notified when we produce one of these shows. Is meant to inform and educate you on the events that are happening in your city, your state, and your country. Okay? Thank you for watching. I'm out.